像 Katie 老师，对 Katie 老师呢也是那个季芳老师也是，他的女儿非常的优秀。可是其实我觉得大家要进大学的这一年的过程都是台语是不是叫做挫底蛋，就是都会很担心。然后在去年年底的时候，大家都知道我们做了一场很大的就是有关于 ChatGPT 的一个 education 的这个部分，然后尤其是对于中文老师的这个部分哈。可是呢，现在我们就会发现说，哎。这个问题呢，就是在说我们在 ChatGPT 上面到底能不能够帮助到孩子，或者是我们应该用什么样的心态来做这样子的一个调整。那今天这个活动其实缘由就是我跟儿子在 Facebook 上聊天，那聊聊之后，我就发现有很多的朋友开始关心这件事情。那我们就来想想看说，现在我们在用 ChatGPT 这件事情一方面是在写大学的 essay 部分，一方面就是在这个伦理 ethics 上面有没有一些可以讨论的。今天很好心的是，我们请到了 Elton。那 Elton 呢，他事实上是一个就是Illumine 的 CEO，那也是我很多年很好的朋友。因为今天都是 friend family， 我就讲实在话 ，Elton 当初就是帮助 Anthony 跟 Alan， 我觉得他们都进到了比我想象中更好的学校。So I'm basically saying, you helped me personally put Anthony and Alan to really top schools. Especially for Alan, I have to say, we all surprised he went to a very kind of really good school. I don't know how you get that, but anyway, 我今天会把中文跟英文都一起 mix 在这边哈，然后呢，我觉得就是大家今天人不多，所以我们其实就是为了大家上来的朋友们做了这样的一个讨论，所以真的 feel free， 孩子在旁边带他一起讲更好，因为等一下我讲完之后，很多后面都是在用英文的方式哈。那今天我想先问大家一个问题，请大家就在 chat 里面自己打哈，然后我们来讨论这个问题，就是我们下一章的问题。当你想到说我们呢是要用 ChatGPT 来写这个大学的 essay 的时候，你们个人的感觉是什么？你可以用1-2个字写，或者是写一段你的感受，因为我觉得这是对我们这个 generation 跟下一个 generation 来讲是很大的一件事哦。就是说，对于我们为什么现在可以有这样的一个 tool， 那这样子来讲的话，会不会还是对我们来说是一个很大的冲击哈？好，谢谢静平用英文写哈，因为用英文写的话 ，Elton 可以直接拿到这个答案哈。来，
先换一个 slide， 这样子大家都知道我们在问什么。
没关系，那个叔叔后面他们会换 slide。
Okay.
来，那个先看一下，先告诉一下 Elton 我们问的是什么问题，用中文翻译一下啊。太好了，这个中文呢 ，Anthony 不知道看不看得懂？
看不懂。
先介绍一下 Anthony 是我的儿子，大家都认识嘛哈。来讲一下 ，question for everyone。我们听到用 ChatGPT 写大学的 essay 的时候，你的感想是什么？
Oh, what are your thoughts about using ChatGPT on college essays? That's the main question right now.
Yeah. So I'm asking actually my friends and family just kind of write their answer here. Okay. So you can kind of see that, and you can kind of see how they feel about this generation use ChatGPT to write the essay.
I will say I just listened to a podcast, and it was a middle school teacher that was talking about teaching middle schoolers, and he said all of a sudden all these middle schoolers became great writers overnight once ChatGPT came out, and he's like suddenly everybody has great essays.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's from the middle school perspective. I don't know about with high school and how current students think about it, but
yeah. 非常好，好，现在这个在讲话的人，如果大家不认识他的话，他是 Anthony Su 哈，他是我的大儿子。那现在他就是在做这些help Elton 做这种college counseling 的。那给你大概1分钟介绍一下你自己好了。
My name is Anthony. I jokingly said I'm Sandra's son. I work for Elton, so that's the relationship here. But yeah, I'm really happy to talk to everyone kind of about this topic of just like, yeah, also just where tech is going and all these things. I went to, I was actually I was talking to my dad about this earlier. He works at Google, but I was trying to, my mom tasked me with explaining how ChatGPT worked, and I was like, I don't know. And then I was looking through and researching last night, and I was like, oh, I actually did take a senior year class on tokenization of text into as a stats model, and I was like, oh, great, I know a little bit more than I would say average, but still, like this thing is complicated. So, but happy to be able to explain it and help here.
OK， 我们今天有其实很多的新朋友，我其实看不太出来您是谁，我不太认识你们。那我相信一定是我们其他的一些老师们把这个 seminar 告诉大家哈。那第一次认识我们的朋友们，谢谢你们上来。我们是由乃大整个团队，今天团队在后面，除了会做一些 recording 的部分之外，也会不间断的来帮忙去大家整理一下一些 note 哈。那之后如果你们喜欢的话，我们也会把这个 recording 的部分给你们大家再去做参考。因为我今天知道有很多的老师们，他们也是在上课的过程中没有办法来上课，所以我们就希望把这个 recording 记下来，然后做一些 note 这样子。那今天这个部分呢，其实我们等一下会讲到很多有关于大学 counseling 的部分，然后讲到 ChatGPT 怎么去帮助孩子，或者是能不能帮这件事情哈。那我们今天其实本来不会有这一场的，事实上是Elton, he is very generous, you know, he's kind of looking me and Anthony doing a live stream and he feels, you know, he has the responsibility to teach and show the community, you know, this is important. So 他今天这次他自己举手来告诉我们说他愿意上来跟我们聊一聊的哈。那我们现在一起来掌声。Please take a 1 minute to introduce yourself. Let's welcome Elton.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And actually, I think it would help me if you can go ahead and go on in the chat and let me know where you are currently listening in from. And so whether it's California, Taiwan, wherever it might be, that would be super helpful. So if you don't mind going onto the chat. And also, I think, honestly, like Sandra, I heard you earlier, but I think for the chat, you know, 可以用中文, right? And then Anthony can translate for me if necessary, right? So I think that'd be terrific. So a little bit of an intro from me. My name's Elton Lin. I'm the CEO and founder of Illumin Education. And we are a college consulting firm based in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area. I've been doing college counseling for the better part of 12 years. Started the company about almost 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been 10 years. And our company on average works with, you know, around, plus or minus around 300 students, maybe about 130, 140 seniors a year. We submit almost 2,000 applications, read over 3,000 essays every year. So we see a large breadth of students come through just our group. And we've had students admitted to every top 50 university, including every Ivy League. And we just want to, we're not sort of angling for just Ivy League, but want to help students in whatever capacity take that next step of clarity and confidence in their journey. And so we're excited to help students who are barely graduating, help students who are top in their class to go wherever they need to go in that next step. So excited to work with students. I'm actually very proud of Anthony. Anthony, I've seen and have been walking alongside with him for many years. And Anthony is just an outstanding young man. And I, you know, a lot of that credit goes to Anthony. A lot of that credit goes to Sandra. So Sandra, having raised a really upstanding young man, I'm really not, you know, he was also my student, but I'm super fortunate to have him on our team. And so it's an exciting moment to be together. And also, I'm also, like, having been friends with Sandra for a long time, we share a lot of the same values, and it's important in an environment that's so competitive and so bent on just achievement. So I'm happy to jump into this. I also want to say that I did just speak with the director of admissions at Emory about ChatGPT. I've also been working on a ChatGPT tool for the last year and a half. So I'm also, you know, in the middle of it and happy to share my perspective and experience as it is helpful for everybody.
Okay, can you just tell us about what do you use for ChatGPT every day?
Okay, I'll tell you this. I was asked to speak at a small private school here in the Bay Area last Wednesday. And I, like I'm busy, as is everybody.
Of course.
And I really didn't start preparing until Wednesday morning. And I went to ChatGPT. ChatGPT produced for me an outline and an entire script. And I picked and chose what I from that, maybe 2,000 words to create a presentation for that Wednesday night. So, I mean, that's something that most recently what I used ChatGPT for, and it was super helpful. Yeah.
Yep, totally agree with you, because I think a lot of people here, they are teachers, and then we actually had a huge class like a few months ago talking about how we use ChatGPT to prepare our lesson plan. So this is kind of the same thing. I do believe they save the teachers a lot of times. Okay, so like right now, I will introduce Anthony to give us some ChatGPT background for people not really, I think people here pretty much know what ChatGPT, but we just kind of, give some background, what's going on, and then we kind of, talk about more.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think for ChatGPT, because I think a lot of people know use the tool or know the tool, but just recognizing what it is and how it really works at a fundamental level is really important, right? Starting with the idea that ChatGPT is not necessarily it's machine learning, it's AI, it's artificial intelligence, but it's not literally thinking, right? It's not literally giving you the answer. ChatGPT is a very good way at guessing the next word in terms of the natural language processing and kind of the information there. The way I think about this, when my dad and I were talking last night, we were thinking, think about if someone says happy birthday to, you would know what the next word is, right? ChatGPT is just very good at that. Another tool to think about is when you're texting someone on your phone, sometimes the text, when you're typing, it'll start guessing words on top to say is this the next word? Is this the next word? ChatGPT is just a very, very strong tool of that, of being able to guess the next word based on what you have told it, guessing the words back that you would want.
So a lot of things ChatGPT can do and cannot do, right? So like Anthony 你刚刚讲的，你觉得 ChatGPT 它是一个我们讲的就是一个语言的模式，就是说它事实上只是在把语言的一些字它去猜测而已，然后它猜你的意思，对，好，所以我觉得大家最近如果是都在用 ChatGPT 的话，你们可能可以问到很多很多不同的问题，然后你也知道说有些问题它的答案看起来是对的，答案有些时候就是莫名其妙的，就像我在用 ChatGPT 第一件事情大家认识我很久，就是我很有趣的是，我在 ChatGPT 拿到的时候，我开始问的第一件事情就是说，你们一定会觉得很好笑，但是我想讲就是我问的第一个是苏淑荣是谁，就是我想知道 ChatGPT 从哪里去找到我自己是谁。I'll translate a little bit.
My mom said one of the first questions she asked is, "Who is Sandra Su?" Or who? Yeah, to try to figure out where is it pulling the information.
Right. 所以有的时候我觉得用 ChatGPT 就是你后来你就发现他写的有一些是简直是在乱写，可是他就会从你的，因为他去找你网络上的一些东西，然后把你的东西凑在一起，然后看起来。
This is the critical part.
Okay.
It's not pulling from the internet.
Oh, really?
It does not pull from the internet. It pulls from text. I think it's I remember from the video, 175 billion pieces of text.
Interesting.
So you can think of it as if a machine or something went through and read through everything in the library and is from there able to guess the next thing, right? So this is the important part of ChatGPT. It can be wrong, and it's wrong because it is making a guess, right? So if it's this thought of hey, when ChatGPT first came out, the issue was ChatGPT is not updating the year. Because it captured the time when it read through all that information, but it did not know if hey, in the news this other thing happened, it would need to be updated on that news to add that to the information it knows. You know what I mean?
Uh,
So, for example, it would give the wrong age of
Mm.
certain politicians because it
Okay.
was just scanning through to say, oh, this is the age. I'm just going to give you that
Oh.
information because that's
Okay.
all I have. So again, it's not online. It doesn't do a
It's
Google search.
attached.
It doesn't do a Google search. It's not the same as a Google search. It's a different type of search.
大家不知道有没有听懂？你把那一段翻成中文，用3句讲一下。
就是说，我基本上真的可以。ChatGPT 跟那个目录是 completely different， 都没有怎么样说没有这个 link 这样子。因为 ChatGPT 是用what's 175 billion。
很多很多的
很多不同的资料，就先已经读好了，像在他进去一个图书馆，把每一个书都已经读过，然后有看过，因为看过那么多书，知道那些字应该怎么样跟着一起对排列这样子。
然后，
所以每次你问 ChatGPT 一个问题的话，他们是去那个图书馆，不在想，在猜你要做你的问题，或是你问他的时候，他会猜一些东西从那些资料出来的。
讲得不错哈，那个给
That's really good, Anthony.
对啊，给 Anthony 稍微拍拍手。教过 Anthony 的陈老师现在也在现场哦。陈老师好，陈老师把 Anthony 教得很好哦，所以呢，以前呢我们在上课的时候呢，有好好学中文，真的现在是绝对是有用的，对不对？哈 ，That's good, that's good, OK。所以呢，我们其实在大概了解一下 ChatGPT 的 background 之后呢，我觉得我们就可以开始 ，You know, we're going to give this question back to Elton. You know, what do you think ChatGPT can do or cannot do? 我们先让maybe Elton will tell us first, and then we probably can kind of show some slides later. Elton?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, ChatGPT is only as good as what you can put into it, and I think especially in relation to what you're asking it. So, I mean, certainly if it's a matter of you know, as I was doing, provide me a college admissions outline for parents, you know, it does give me, you know, maybe the 7 essential things. And it basically is, you know, like I think Anthony, you were talking about, it's not doing a Google search because if it's doing it, the technicality is that you have to go through Google, and whatever Google has indexed is then the content. They are indexing their own content. And so it's only going up to a particular year, and it's making, you know, the best natural language guess as far as what that might be. But it can certainly corral information and present it back in a more coherent way. And I think that's perhaps the, you know, the most helpful thing. And then as it relates to college essays, there's a large VC firm, you know, Andreessen Horowitz here in the Bay Area, that put out their predictions, or sort of their foreshadow of what AI is going to do. And what they said is the price of content generation is going to come down to almost zero. And so content generation being like writing blogs, creating videos, any kind of text or imaging, the cost of that will come down significantly. And so, as it relates to creating essays, the time and cost of creating a very basic essay will come down to almost zero. But the value of creating something that's really good is still going to be very challenging. And like maybe the analogy will be when digital cameras came out, you know, maybe 20 some odd years ago, there was a lot of people who, you know, put out a lot of digital imagery. Everybody had a point and shoot SLR, and there was a lot of intermediate skilled photographers who became photographers. But still, good photography is still very challenging, and the premium on good photography, the cost or the value of really good photography is still very high, because the value of that, I mean, it's still very difficult to produce good photography. And so I think that's the value of ChatGPT, is that it can generate very basic content very easily, but still generating good content is still very challenging.
Very good. OK. 我们的 chat room 里面呢会有一些 note 好，所以大家如果在听的有一点点不清楚，或者是说不太知道这个整段的 summarize 是什么的时候， 我们有我们的老师在里面把他这个刚刚讲的东西全部变成中文的方式，希望以后可以 ChatGPT 当场翻译，我们就不用有人工在后面做这件事情了哈。那刚刚 Elton 讲的这一段 ，Anthony，do you want to kind of supplementing something?
I mean, thinking about and also your thing about ChatGPT being able to translate in real time, it's already happening. There are YouTube videos. You can buy that software where they will help you translate in real time or translate a YouTube video so that you're speaking English, you have 130 other languages already in the transcription. So, but I mean, yeah, I would like, I think Elton's analogy of photography is probably one way to say that, like, the writing and the skill of writing is not going to necessarily go away, right? But of course that bar is going to change from what writers, like what we expect out of someone in a career writing position, but also it's going to be a thought of like, this is going to hit marketing, this is going to hit graphic design, this is going to hit a lot of these other creative fields that is I guess a lot of people in that industry are still waiting to kind of see how that is going to change. So,
right. So 我们可以看到下一张 slide， 我们再 try to, Elton, I would like you to read this slide and see what do you think about this. It's kind of really, that's the way we try to say, okay, we can do this, we cannot do that, or what do you think about it?
I think it can certainly generate ideas. It can certainly grammatically correct a student's sentence. It could certainly do more than just generate the idea. It could completely flesh out the idea to where you can, see the beginning, middle, and the end, as it relates to, like, say, if I were just, use the example of a college essay, it could entirely write the college essay. Now, whether the college essay is a quality college essay, I think that's a separate question. But can it generate an entire coherent, cohesive essay? Absolutely, without question. And so, what it can't do, students' own creativity. I think it just depends on the level of creativity. I think it certainly can generate some level of creativity as it relates to what is out on the internet currently. So if if there's a lot of good content out on the internet that is indexed on the back end for ChatGPT, then certainly ChatGPT can create a representation of that creativity that's already existing on the internet. And so I think can it create something? Now I think whether it could create something that really represents a student well and is effective in communicating a student's values, character, and uniqueness to a college, I think that's a different question. Yeah, but can it do it? I think it can do most of these things actually. So.
你要帮 Tamia 问的那个问题 What do you think? Just briefly.
Oh yeah, with Tamia saying maybe essays are not going to be required for applying for college in the future, and I mean, Elton, I guess the other question here is also like, what do you think would be an alternative when it comes to trying to figure out a student's character if 3 years from now, like all the essays are plagued with ChatGPT? Like, what do you think the schools could really kind of do to try to figure out like which students are a good fit for a particular campus?
Yeah, I think so. And I want to qualify this by saying that I think I think on our end, we're thinking about the ethical considerations or even the moral considerations with using ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI tool to generate, something like this, right? And I think that colleges are that's only one of maybe 5 or 6 things that colleges are thinking about. So, and I'm happy to kind of get into that, share a little bit about what the Emory director of admissions also share what I've been hearing from other admissions representatives. I think the ethical and moral issue is just one of many things, and the other things are actually not related to the integrity of the application. But with regards to there was a lot of conversation earlier in the year about schools eventually transitioning to an interview. So instead of submitting an essay, we'll just do a 10-minute interview of a student, and you cannot, hopefully you can't fake an interview, but let's see how the metaverse changes that maybe in a year or two. But there's ideas of transitioning to an interview. There's discussion of getting rid of essays altogether. Some colleges have said they may consider having a box on the college app that says you agree not to use any generative AI tool, which I don't think is going to happen, to be honest with you. Yeah. So like, but there, generally speaking, are not going to be any changes this year. So I think every school is trying to understand what the impact is going to be, and this is going to be a feeling out year for how they treat ChatGPT type essays in the future. But this year, nothing's going to change.
I have this really interesting question because I understand some teachers, when they give the student assignment, especially for writing, I talked to some Chinese school teachers, and they could understand this is not writing from the students because the level, they know the student very well, so they know this is not. But my question is for the college counselor, do they really able to, because they don't really know the students, do they really able to read and see this is, what I'm trying to say, this is like a writing by the student, or this is like a writing by ChatGPT? How can they distinguish that?
So I'll let me share with what Emory University said first, and then we can get into it. But basically, the director of admissions at Emory said, if you just punch in, have ChatGPT generate an essay for you, and you just don't do any basic modification, the essay is very, very average. It's very medium, and there's nothing about the essay that will really help your application stand out. And there's really no value add. It's just maybe the word is net neutral. It's just, it doesn't impact positively or it doesn't impact negatively. If all of a sudden there's a lot of very cleanly written, grammatically correct essays, but the content is still not that deep or not that unique. And so for him, he's like saying, I mean, it's fine, go ahead and use ChatGPT, but if you actually don't learn it, you can certainly use ChatGPT to try to make it more unique and creative, but you have to know how to prompt ChatGPT to help make it unique and creative, and that takes some creativity. And so from his perspective, it doesn't, for this season. I think things could change next season, but for him, he doesn't really see it as much of a threat. And to be honest with you, I think that's actually most selective admissions offices feel about the same way, and they're not overly worried about ChatGPT. And I would contend that they actually have other worries that are bigger than ChatGPT. Which I know sounds terrible, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I think their concerns are actually more significant. And the question of whether admissions offices will begin employing ChatGPT to actually read through applications. I'm not saying any school is doing that, but that conversation is also happening. And how, like, we're talking about how students are using ChatGPT. We're not even talking about how admissions offices may potentially use ChatGPT in the future. And so it becomes a strange arms race, kind of aiming at each other with ChatGPT. So.
You actually bring our next question, right? Why? What do you think? Like, I think some students find out this is really good stuff now. 所以为什么有很多学生现在很 rely on ChatGPT?
Yeah. So just like why are students, do you think, rely on ChatGPT? I guess is it this thought of not knowing that you would have a medium essay coming out, or what do you think is going to be the main driver of of students using it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I want to qualify, maybe before, why do students rely on ChatGPT? Let me maybe give my thoughts on that, and then maybe qualify that statement next, because I think why do they use it? I think like all of us, I didn't want to spend 6 hours working on an outline and a script for my workshop. I'm trying to save time. I'm trying to save effort, and I just want to, get to what I want to get to much quicker. And certainly, I think students are doing that. I think there may be a propensity for international students to, regardless of where they're from, where English is not their first language, to want to go straight to ChatGPT and begin to kind of generate their, if it's a college essay, to begin generating work there. So I think those are the most basic reasons. I think everybody wants to make their life simpler. I do notice that this is new in the last couple of weeks, that there's actually been a decline in the use of ChatGPT, like active users on the ChatGPT platform in the past couple of weeks. It's the first time there's been a decline in active users. And I think that's interesting to the degree that there are actually probably fewer students and fewer people at large using ChatGPT than we think. It doesn't mean that ChatGPT or generative AI is not going to change every industry. It will, and it will, eventually. But as of today, the usage is probably not as high as we might think. So,
what do you think
of the question?
Yeah.
I mean,
do you use that a lot?
I don't use
ChatGPT.
I don't think I.
Why you don't use?
I'll put it this way. I mean, I don't have to write a ton for work. I'm trying to think if I know any.
Other reasons.
Well, I mean, like for example, I know BuzzFeed went and got rid of like a lot of their editing team, and they were just using all ChatGPT to write their articles. And it's just like, from the company's perspective, it is also just like, hey, I have this tool. I don't need anything super complex. I'm just posting like, a list of, I don't know, 12 recommendations for XYZ on the website. Like ChatGPT can put that out pretty easily already. So I think the use case of ChatGPT, it is just simpler for a lot of people, and like for a lot of companies, more cost effective as well.
Yeah. So 我下面一个问题想要问现在在听的老师们哈，就是当你们现在在就是看学生作业的时候，你有没有猜得出来学生是不是用 ChatGPT 在写？因为我知道现在线上有很多的老师。I'm actually out. I'm kind of doing a little activity with the teachers right now. I'm asking if they can tell if the students use ChatGPT to write their essay in Chinese school. 因为我知道在学校，尤其是中文要写作文的时候，以前对学生来讲 ，it's a very difficult thing to write an essay in Mandarin. So we're not talking about English. Mandarin is kind of even harder. 所以有没有办法猜得出来学生是用 ChatGPT 在写功课？然后我也想另外问，我们线上有1、2位那个音乐老师，有没有就是 ChatGPT 在这个音乐的上面有没有什么帮？他可以写这些吗？写曲子吗？可不可以给我们一些 feedback？ 或者等一下我们可以 open mic 来讨论这个问题哈。所以看看老师可以看得出来哈，因为文法怪怪的。
Yeah, kind of. There's a question of also just like, when there's a couple of music teachers as well, of like what are applications of ChatGPT for music, kind of how that works.
Yeah. 所以可以哈，你看刚刚那个季明雅也有讲说他
kind of the
compose.
Yeah, the text and kind of it's either using kind of strange phrases or phrases that aren't typically expected at that student's level.
Yeah. 很好。所以其实是可以猜得出来学生写的东西是不是他的 level， 然后也是不是他。那我下面要进行第二个问题，也就是说，那老师们你们怎么去 double check， 怎么去跟学生猜？你有办法去跟学生说，I'm guessing this essay you probably helped by ChatGPT a lot， or 你要怎么去跟学生 confirm 这个问题，是不是这样子讲？好，这是第一个。第二个，也就是说。我们怎么去跟学生来谈这个 ChatGPT 到底可不可以用？然后现在有另外一个叫做 Elton, I don't know if you're familiar with this, the Chat Zero. It's kind of like against ChatGPT. I shouldn't say against.
I think you turn in a article and they'll check to see if it was used, if ChatGPT was used to write this article or something like that.
Right. So
yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So can you give some let me kind of give you some background. It's actually 今天的这个 this talk basically based on this kind of story. So I was like, oh, really? So my friend just told me, she's kind of writing right now. She said their high school students, they actually wrote all this by themselves, but they Chat Zero think, it's 100% did by ChatGPT. So how you argue with that? I don't know if you understand my question.
It's basically like, yeah, like if an article is written by the student, but then GPT-0 is saying, hey, this is all ChatGPT, or like, hey, this is 70% ChatGPT, or however that system works. Like what, I guess it's also a question of like, what's the point of not using ChatGPT if you're just going to pick up my words as computer generated anyway?
I mean, Chat0 is also a startup, just like OpenAI. I mean, everybody's at the beginning of creating a product has varying levels of accuracy, right? So I think and there's no surprise that I'm sure that has happened, and that makes sense. And I think everybody, this is 2023. We're all going to look back 5 years from now and kind of think about what a strange year 2023 was as it relates to this ChatGPT tool, right? So I think we're just understanding what it can do. We are just seeing its applications. There are endless startups right now thinking about, if they're shortcutting developing their own AI algorithm and then using the ChatGPT engine and then just building off the ChatGPT engine. Everybody in the startup world is thinking about how to employ it. So I'm not, I think Anthony, you were at the UC conference 2 weeks ago. The UC counselors were saying that their system is detecting ChatGPT essays. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if that were true, and because there's so many applications, and are you really, we can get into the practical ramifications of like 130,000 applications at UCLA going through an intermediate like ChatGPT detection tool, and then what sort of process is needed in order to, I for sure think it's not happening, and so to me, I think for this coming year, I don't see the power of ChatGPT generating, unless you're enormously brilliant, really knowing how to use ChatGPT. I don't even think you need to be brilliant, as long as you're pretty, sort of sharp enough to really creatively pull what you need to pull out of it. If you can, then you could probably write a good essay. So I'm not overly concerned about the quality of essays this year. Next year, let's take a look. And because I think the ChatGPT engine also improves. It's improved already. It's going to improve by next year. But I'm not overly worried about this year, to be honest. To be honest with you, I've seen my students' essays. And sometimes I wish they would use ChatGPT. I'm like, you need to.
tool, Yeah. Okay. 你要读一下那个。
What does it say? Under a GPT-0 published an article explaining their bugs, and he actually doesn't have an answer of how students could defend themselves. Yeah, and I think there's just another like moral question as well of like, when accused of cheating and you did not cheat, how do you prove you didn't cheat? That's another question.
That's a question we can hold on. Let's go to our number 5 question. That's the question we're going to talk about. Why we have all this discussion. We already know ChatGPT. We know how to use that. But is this considered cheating? That's why we have the ethic question. I want to hear what Elton think about this. And other people, all the teachers and friends, you can kind of write your own opinion too. This is like open discussion.
I think it is hard at this stage to say that it is, it is cheating. And I want to maybe I'm old enough to remember when calculators were not like sort of regular use, right? And so when calculators came on the scene, it did feel like it was cheating. It did feel like and we found a way to kind of move forward past calculators and recognize that it did improve, make things a lot simpler and help us achieve our goals more effectively. And I think for right now, it will help us achieve our goals more effectively. And I don't automatically at this stage want to say that using ChatGPT is cheating. I think we need to and I also want to say that I do think that we're past the point of no return at this stage. And I know this is a bit of a philosophical conversation that we need, we could over hot pot that we should do together, and so, but I think we're past actually that point, right, of just saying we should outlaw ChatGPT. It's not probably the most fruitful conversation. So I think the question of like, should, how might we best utilize ChatGPT, and how can we still develop the type of skills that I think are still helpful as it relates to writing and speaking? And I think, Sandra, I think you've been, a big advocate of really learning how to really hone your public speaking skill. And that skill, once it's like sort of post ChatGPT, is going to be so much more valuable. And I think those things can't be replaced, right? So being able to craft a sentence, articulate that well, reading on, and being able to understand the style of your public speaking is all very important and cannot be replaced by ChatGPT. So I think we'll need to learn how to develop those skill sets in other areas and accept that ChatGPT is here, and how might we utilize that, to achieve our goals better.
Very good. 我其实下面这一整段我要用中文讲 because if I have a choice, I always think Mandarin can express myself more. 所以你等一下要翻译给 Elton 听，所以下面人都会听得懂。我觉得我想要跟很多中文老师，现在在线上的中文老师也谈这件事情，就是我自己看，因为 Elton talking about ChatGPT and public speaking because a lot of time 这是 public speaking 你写的文章，我其实在 ChatGPT 这件事情上有很深的感受，因为感觉上 ChatGPT 帮你写出来的文章非常的 general，就是它就是给你一个答案。例如说我们以前年轻的时候，我想下面老师都会这个讲给下面老师听，他们都很开心，就是我们常年轻的时候，像我小时候演讲，我常都会讲什么中华民国怎么样统一中国或怎么，反正就是这种很 typical 的一些文章，你把它输进 ChatGPT 的时候，它给你的答案都会是这样说，哦1、2、3怎么样讲。可是这个东西里面，我不知道大家老师们给我一些 feedback， 我会不会同意？就是这个东西里面太 general， 就是像说我写给他的题目，我写给他这篇文章，他也可以背。那他讲出来的就完全没有他自己 personal 的一些感受或去感动，或让人家感动他这个演讲的内容。好，所以我觉得这个就是刚刚我们其实现在讲到现在，我们共同认同的就是 ChatGPT 它可以给你一些 idea， 可是这个很多你 personal 里面的经验是你自己带在身上会感动别人的。这一整段你可以翻译吗？
I think Tamia is right. I think you're asking ChatGPT to do the wrong thing. So you need to ask. Again, the critical thing is it can only use how much you put in. If you say write a speech about patriotism or whatever else you want to discuss, it's going to write a pretty basic topic. But if you say, hey, I want you to write X number of words, use an extended analogy around, whatever kind of particular analogy, let's say like leaves falling in the autumn, blah 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 blah. Like it'll go and hit all those checkpoints that you tell it, right? And then even if it does it wrong, you say, hey, you forgot this, add this, and it'll go and do it again, right? So it's a thought of like if you're asking it to write dry speeches, it will write dry speeches. But if you're asking it to write poetry, it will do its best to write poetry as well.
我讲不出来那个感觉，我总觉得他有些东西是写不出来的。例如说我自己 personal 的故事。
She believes it cannot be expressive. I think you're not asking it to be expressive. Right? And a lot of Tamia, as a music teacher, you recognize like when you're performing music, you can perform music, and then you can perform music expressively, like expressively, like being able to really, bring something else out of the technicality of hitting the notes, right? So I think it's the same idea with ChatGPT. It's like if you ask it to do something, it'll do something. If you're asking it to do things in a particular way, it'll do things. It will do its best to do it in a particular way. Then we can kind of figure out like, as if you want to criticize its literature that it's putting out, then you can get the experts to really do that.
我看到那个陈老师，Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think what you just said about the like a musical performer really performing something really greatly, or a speech maker who is really making an outstanding speech, the value of that is going to go through the roof. is going to skyrocket. The value of creating that content is going to go down. So it's just going to be like, I think the value of that musical performer is going to be even higher than you can imagine. I mean, this is another, I don't mean to throw this out there right now, but you know, like, you can even argue that actually, I mean, there's so many students who really, or so many families and students who want their kids to do computer science. Even the value of creating code, that's also going to come down. And actually in 10 years, I mean, there's a lot of futurists who say that the computer science degree, the value of the computer science degree is going to come down sharply. The value of any creative major, which includes, and it includes even philosophy, art, music, the value of that is going to go way up in the next 10 years. And so, and it's because of, you know, you cannot recreate that on ChatGPT.
Interesting. Do you want to kind of give some feedback to that?
I was also looking at Tammy Aisha, like, you know, writing an article in a very human style, and it won't pass through GPT-0. And it, you know, to an extent, may speak to how people are writing these days, you know, of like the average, I think it was also like the average American writes at an 8th grade level, you know? So it's like, it's also an anticipation of just, you know, how if in the expectation on regular folks on writing is also going to be different from, you know, other, you know, text from an author or text from, and keep in mind, like ChatGPT is trained on, again, like what they say, 175 billion articles. It's read everything basically. So, no.
我还是在想，就是例如说，他现在写个，就像我现在在回到是我要跟中文老师们的对话是，如果今天一个孩子他写不出来 essay， 或者是他在想一个 speech 的时候，你们会不会？我现在就在想，我会不会让孩子就是把他的题目打到 ChatGPT 里面去自己去让他自己去想这个问题，或者用 ChatGPT 来帮助他去想这个问题。例如说，我们常常给一个题目，就是像我说，今天我们来讲的是我对中秋节的感想，就是这么 general 的一个题目好了。那老师们如果说给这个题目的时候，孩子可能不会写。那你觉得，如果当初你这样讲好，我们这样想好，我们回到那个陈老师教你的写作文的那个时代，给你这个题目的时候，你会不会希望有这个帮忙？你现在想回去，你是 8th grade to write a，
我会希望有这个帮忙。I would say no because if I have to deliver it, I need to write it. At least me personally, if I have to deliver a speech, I probably would need to write it. Right? Some students might not have that thought. Like, hey, let me just read it, you know. But I think the delivery is still important. But again, it's like if you're writing a paper, I'm trying to think about like I'm thinking about like those like AP US history questions with like, here's a political cartoon and try to give me the context of like where this cartoon came from, right? It's like you can't, like ChatGPT might be able to give a guess at it.
Maybe something is wrong. It's not going to be all correct, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also just like from a student perspective, and you're trying to figure out like, hey, if I need to answer this question, and even if you have ChatGPT as a tool, if you don't know how to approach the question, you still will not know how to answer the question, right? So it's like if they're asking like, hey, here's like 3 primary sources, and like here's the text from this, like maybe they don't give you the time period, and you have to say like, hey, like what was happening during this time period? If you don't have the context and you still can't connect the dots, even if you ask ChatGPT like, here's the 3 pieces of text, you know, try to make a guess. ChatGPT will make a guess. It may not be right, you know, if the student still doesn't have the context to say, oh, this was during this period, or you know, add this context as well of like this other thing that was happening, you know, of being able to kind of synthesize that information from a student's perspective. So.
What do you think, Elton?
I think this comment from Tammy is really interesting. I think, you know, this whole aspect of my younger generation students don't really talk now, they text. And I think that certainly has already been happening. And I think the onset of ChatGPT will probably make some of the exercise of generating, you know, a sentence properly, whether it's in Chinese or English, you know, much more easy. I feel like sometimes things need to swing in a certain direction for it to swing back, and I still come back to the fact that I mean, I think anybody who's in business or any type of broad type of work, I mean, I think you probably know that the people who oftentimes the people who are most successful are not the smartest people in the room. They're oftentimes the people who know how to connect, who know how to build teams, who know how to work with people, who know how to communicate. And so I think the value of those skills, which at its root is still proper communication, is going to be at an all-time high, and it will drive people back to learning how to communicate better, crafting a sentence, structuring, learning how to communicate and speak and connect emotionally. And so I don't overly worry at this stage about everybody hiding in their homes yet. I'm not excited about the metaverse type technology. I think that's problematic, but that's another webinar. That's another seminar. But I think oftentimes what happens is that, like it'll drive, we need the consequences of the existing technology to drive us back to what's most valuable, so.
Yeah, 非常好。所以我们其实还是共同同意，就是说我们还是一个 human being. We kind of want to talk to each other, like we have some eye contact, all that together, rather than just chat. 可是我真的发现这个 generation 就像 we're talking about my little one Alan, like when he was in college, and he texts fast and a lot, just like he talks too. One time I call him, he's like, do you have any emergency? I said, why? I just want to call you. He said, well, then you text me, you don't call me. You call me, I think you have an emergency. I'm trying to kind of explain that because 我觉得 our generation is so different than their generation now. So I sometimes do feel, do we really need to try to talk to them like in this way, the way they want, or they should kind of talk to us, like really talk, not texting.
It's funny. It's funny. I don't. This is an old people's comment, but you remember when we were teens, we talked on the phone too much, and our parents said, "You're talking on the phone too much. You should learn how to talk in person." So, anyways,
What do you want to say?
No, I was going to say, I forget where I learned this, but there was some kind of argument about most, like, from a societal perspective, most people being literate is a new thing, of just like, hey, this has happened within the past couple hundred years, and that is also kind of changing how society's expectation of interpretation of text, and that as well, with everything being able to be sent back and forth in text form, it's also a lot easier that way. But I forget where. It must be some old YouTube video or something I was watching.
所以你也比较 prefer texting rather than talk, or depends?
It depends. Chinese, the voice memo is a lot easier because sometimes I can't recognize the words.
That's right. 你在这边 order 食物都是用讲的，不是用写的，因为看不懂字的。
或是你要去 Uber 的时候，like 松哪一个松哪一个德，那松德路 I just ask it and then it'll give me the right words.
That's right. 事实上 ，Yeah， 我觉得其实在这个语言上面，我就是真的看到 ABC 现在学语言的方式跟我们好不一样。然后他根本就是先去想说的字怎么讲，然后讲出来，就会帮他 type， 他就能够去到他要去的地方。所以其实我觉得 technology 其实对年轻人来讲还是挺好的。我们看我们下一，所以 Did Elton really answer this question? Is cheating or not?
I said no.
It's just another tool.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
no.
what you suggest to the teacher if this is like a teacher kind of consulting question. What do you think if the teacher feels the kids they are cheating? What should the teacher do or say?
Let me make sure. So what if the teacher thinks it's cheating?
Yes.
Well, that's a if the teacher thinks it's cheating, then they should ask students not to use it. I think this is, and I'll go back not only because college admissions is my domain, my expertise, right? So we connected with Georgia Tech and the Caltech admissions directors maybe 3 months ago, and they said we want students to use ChatGPT. Like, this is the onset of new technology that is going to change the world. We don't want them to avoid new technology, and we're going to change our essay prompts to factor in the use of ChatGPT. I don't know if that's happening this season. It probably isn't, but both of their perspectives was, I assume they're using ChatGPT, and I may even expect them to use ChatGPT. So let's adjust the assignment to challenge them further and to really get to what we want. And Caltech was thinking, like, what's really the purpose of essays? We want to learn how students think. And so the director of admissions was saying, like, maybe we might say, ask the students to use ChatGPT, tell us how you use ChatGPT and the creative ways you use ChatGPT to generate a response. And so that helps them get a glimpse of the student's creative mind thinking, but while still using ChatGPT. So, I mean, I'm not a music teacher. I'm not a Chinese teacher. I empathize with both of you.
You know how I'd solve it? If I was a Chinese teacher, how I'd solve it? I'd say, you have to read me your essay.
Oh.
You have to read it to me. You have to submit a recording. This way, even if you use ChatGPT to write it, you still need to figure out how to read it to me.
Oh, 好厉害哦！
Right?
老师 I'll be
Because I would be stumped on that. I'd be like, oh, well,
I'm
I
so
gotta
proud
figure
of
out how to
you.
read this.
我们念了这么多年中文，今天终于 figure out 我们
I'm just telling you, this is how I would how I would approach it, knowing how hard. Yeah. Can you read this thing you submitted? Yeah, that would be my answer to it.
Hey, Anthony, the new iPhone does voice recreation now.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. That is very true.
being person， 你看。
Tammy's like, Anthony, you better show up in person and recite that speech.
Like we play music, right?
Yeah.
We're recording in person. It's so different.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
It's like a human touch, right? 所以我觉得真的是很多我们这些 technology 的东西，可事实上我们还是希望有人的感觉跟互动，那是我们一直想要的， right？ 对。然后我们看下面2张图，我觉得很有趣。I'm going to go to the next 2 slides. I actually totally copy this from ChatGPT. I asked a question, and GPT give the answer to me. Elton, what do you think about this? That's GPT's answer for answer this question.
Answering if it's ethical to use ChatGPT, or is using ChatGPT cheating?
So from 1 to 10, which score you will give to the GPT? 大家也可以一起读一下哈，这个很有趣。GPT 回答他自己的 question.
Yeah, I mean, it's telling you it's ethical use. I mean, it's honestly a very reliable but basic. And this is what ChatGPT is generating. It's reliable but basic. And there's little nuances, drafting and editing aid. Using ChatGPT to draft portions of an essay or editing existing content is ethical. I mean, what does drafting portions mean? I mean, I can just draft 5 portions of a 5-part essay, I mean, so I think the point here is that it's very basic. It kind of covers generally the right tone, but it's not specific enough. And I think we can sit here and again spend hours talking about all the philosophical details that kind of go in whichever direction, and it's that's what needs to emerge on the next generation of this. So.
Totally agree with you. So that's why we say this is written by ChatGPT. They just give you a really general, like a really superficial 的那个答案而已，它不会给你很深的一些讨论。Because our human being will think about this and connect to 1, 2, to 3 to 4这样子的 connection， 可 ChatGPT 就会给你一个很单纯的答案。Yeah. So I think our time is, morely kind of close to the time. The last question I'm going to ask Elton, and then we'll kind of open mic for like Q&A. But the question is, Elton, are you worried about your work will be replaced by ChatGPT?
No. I'm
Give
not.
me 3 reasons. 3 reasons.
Because there's so much
asking him like he's ChatGPT.
there's so much counseling involved in our consulting work. I mean, I think sometimes we use those 2 words interchangeably. We consult by giving people input on how to navigate the college admissions process, but we counsel because the journey is so emotional, and there is lots of decisions, internal decisions and external decisions that need to be made as it relates to working our way through the college admissions process. So there's so much counseling involved, and I would argue the value of counseling is going to go up. So no, I don't worry that much about. I think what's more going to happen is the value of higher education is going to change. I think the presence of more alternative educational pathways are going to emerge. I think there's going to be more trade school options for more students, which I actually think is good. I think there's going to be more alternatives to a 4-year degree, like computer programming boot camps or data science boot camps or things like that, that will allow students to get to the workforce quicker. And we're already living in I think this is probably, we're already living in a creator economy where there's all sorts of different industries that are starting, and there's freedom in the internet generation to start those industries. So I don't worry about my job, but we also need to adapt over the course of the next 5 to 10 years.
Very good, very good. Elton 在讲说他不会担心他的工作会没有哈，就像我们一直在讨论说会不会因为这些 language 的一些 assistant， 那中文老师的工作会没有。其实我们一直都不需要有这种过分的担心，因为我们人跟人之间还是要用人的方式来做很多的对话，然后这个刚刚 Elton 有句话讲得很好哈，我觉得他让我感觉到就是说，因为在这个整个 consulting 的这个大学申请的整条路上，有一件事情很重要，就是有很多 emotional 的东西，那个东西是 ChatGPT 没有办法帮我，对吧？就是说，今天爸爸为了说你要上这个学校，那儿子跟你说我不，然后今天爸爸要你这个 major， 儿子小孩子说我不，然后这个中间很多在吵的过程之中，就像我当年就是因为跟 Anthony 吵到差不多了，然后我老公就问我说，你们2个哪一个人要开门出去就好了，然后就不会再吵架，所以那时候我就开始找说需要有个大学的 counseling 的工作，就是找这样的一个人来帮助我们哈。所以我相信现在很多，我想把时间先留给有没有朋友有一些问题想要举手问的，我们直接可以先帮我举手，然后我们来开麦好不好？然后看一下，把画面切换一下，切换成我们可以看得到大家的画面，有没有人举手？哎，我这怎么打开？可以看到所有人。因为我觉得今天这个问题，今天这个机会很难得，然后也很多是现在正在准备要申请大学的朋友们，有没有什么问题想直接问的？我们要直接问的有没有？或者你现在可以帮我们分享一下你的感想，有吗？大家碰到要问问题的时候都很客气的，不好意思。哦，我点一下名好了啦，那个 Tammy 来讲一下好吗？ Hello， Tammy 你可以讲话吗 ？Hello，
我开镜头很没有，我只是一直在觉得我没有不赞成counseling，因为我觉得就像米其林餐厅会有人去吃一样。可是因为我长期在帮 disadvantaged 的小朋友做免费的 counseling， 所以对我来讲，我常常在想，那没有钱的小朋友怎么办？所以我很支持 ChatGPT， 因为其实不是我也很支持 AI， 因为我觉得没有钱的小孩有 AI， 他就有 counselor 了。然后 AI 其实在日本你可以做出像这只真狗一样或真人，所以 eventually 他们也会碰到一个就像真的人一样，只是可能没有心跳，但是也有体温哦。然后呢是免费的， 那这是我在对 AI 最大的期许，就是我们有钱我们就请 counselor， 我们另外花钱。可是如果没有的时候，我希望这些免费的 AI 可以帮助到很多低收入或需要帮助的小朋友。你不要点我，就这样。
对，
Yeah.
你讲一下。
Tammy was saying, because like with ChatGPT being free, it is kind of an equalizer for a lot of folks who are going to be disadvantaged or don't have the resources to kind of figure out, how to hire a writing tutor or to hire someone who can work with the student for an extended amount of time on an essay, right? Of being able to give, hopefully, at least some feedback of being able to help the student with next steps and thoughts like that. But being able to have that kind of equalizing effect of, what a new technology does.
Good.
Agreed.
Good. OK， 那个 Amy 老师，这次我也是为你也想要，那个你 Amy 老师讲几句吧，你在吗？然后我看到 Carol 老师也有想跟我们分享一下，您下一位 Amy
是找我吗？还是谁？
是，就是你。
OK， 好。我刚刚分享一下，我曾经问过我儿子，他现在大2，我问过说你们交的作业，你有没有用 ChatGPT？ 他说有，然后我说查不出来吗？他说他们submit的那个网站啊，老师给的submit的网站，事先就会过滤你是不是用 ChatGPT 写，所以那个网站本身就有这个功能。然后我就问他说，那你有用吗？我说你都没有被老师抓到吗？他是说他会去，当他写不出来的时候，他会去问 concept， 他会去问 idea， 可是写他会用他的话写。就是当他对，就像说你如何过中秋节，你没有 idea 怎么过，可是你可以让 GPT 给你几个 idea， 吃月饼、看月亮、什么团圆，给你这几个 idea 以后，你用你的话去写这样子。所以我是认为现在大学生啊，我不晓得高中生是不是这样，好像目前我儿子的对 GPT 的使用是这样子。好，报告完毕。
谢谢老师。老师今天是来捧我们的场的，因为他实在有给我们很多很好的一些 information， 我觉得很棒。你要 summarize 他讲的吗？
Sure. Just asking if she was asking her son if he uses ChatGPT in writing. And yeah, typically it's of course you'd use it to kind of generate some ideas and try to get some thoughts. And I figure, the thought was with the mid-autumn festival of what traditions do you do? It's effectively no different from asking Google, hey, what do you do for mid-autumn festival?
Good, OK。Carol 老师来，请说。
好，谢谢。我今天很感谢你们今天办这个活动。然后第一个我是很想 echo 那个 Tammy 老师他的看法，因为我自己小孩现在也是11年级，然后呢，他其实很不愿意找 counselor， 因为他觉得找 counselor 的话会 extra works， 他要更多的工作量，然后他觉得他自己可以搞定，所以他只是说，那我到时候要写 essay 的时候，我就找一个，就是到时候再请老师帮我改，他只是想做这个部分。OK，which totally is fine， 因为基本上就是我们其实因为我了解学生他小孩有自己的想法，我也是蛮 support 他的想法。但是我觉得今天听到这个主题我更兴奋了，因为我觉得我的儿子可能如果他刚好他没听到，因为他去打球。Anyway， 我觉得如果他能善用那个 ChatGPT， 他也可以先帮助他写一个蛮 decent 的一个essay， 然后再可能再把他的 idea 再 personalize 一些，我觉得他可能会更觉得就是那是他的东西，而不是 counselor 的东西。所以 somehow 我觉得其实我其实觉得像 ChatGPT 或者是现在这样 AI 的技术，可以帮助我们有心去学习一个新的技术，或者是就是怎么讲，它可以 open a lot of opportunity for all the people want to learn。我觉得其实我们应该有一个比较 positive 的想法来使用它，但是当然我相信 college 的老师会担心，就是像刚刚讲的，可能会被有那个就是 parodies， 就是会有抄袭作用。但是在我们一般的这个市井小民应该不成问题，这样子提升我们的程度，这样谢谢你们今天的分享。
谢谢 Carol 老师，每次都非常的开心，我永远看到他在 Facebook 上都是在笑，然后都在跳舞，所以我觉得他就是一个非常 open mind、非常开心。你其实你的里面有一个问题，我可以提出来一个这个问题吗？来，你知道来，让我们解释给那个 Elton 听，你觉得问题在哪里
？I suddenly forgot it. But basically, in summary, there's an 11th grader, or she has an 11th grader who doesn't particularly want to work with a consultant, thinks it's going to be extra work, which, fair, fine. And then wants help on essays to try to generate, thinking through with 12th grade, like probably starting with ChatGPT, trying to figure out what might be a good prompt or what might be a good essay to start with, and then maybe add personalization. Here's where I thought the question was, and this is my question to Elton. Do you think you could take an okay essay from ChatGPT, and how would you personalize it? Or would it be really hard to take? How would you take that medium essay to that level where a student starts? And I think this is a really important part, because we do essay bootcamp a lot and kind of talk to students about their kind of authentic story, or kind of making sure they have a good starting point for a lot of their essays, because sometimes if you're writing something that's overdone, it just kind of fizzles out. How do you think you could add that to a student's like creative process?
From what I say this from a little bit of experience, actually we're also working on ChatGPT tool. So I have had a little bit of experience trying to get some better output from ChatGPT, but I think like purely just from a college essay perspective, ChatGPT puts out a very medium grade college essay. And you can make a medium grade college essay a little bit better by just making the details a little bit more detailed, the stories, to just more specificity in the description of certain stories. Like those things can happen. I think when you read a really like elegant essay or a really beautiful essay, I think this goes back to, like what Anthony was saying earlier about, like, if you were to really create a speech, you need your speech to really reflect the ebb and flow of your voice, of your way of you communicate. And so I think if you have ChatGPT generate something, it's not going to generate something that is true to your rhythm, true to your voice. And so you need to put in work for it to really come back to your voice and the way you communicate. And so, but I also feel like when you think about, the kind of middle, like 80% of students, you have ChatGPT generate an essay, you take maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, the ChatGPT essay is a 5. And then you give some details and you turn a 5 into a 7 or 7.5. That's probably better than most students' essays right now, what they can generate on their own. Will that essay be a 10? I don't think it will ever be a 10. I think it will be very difficult, because there's that 10 essay is really about the right kind of push and pull, the ebb and flow of a good speech. And it's hard to have somebody else generate a speech for you, for it to really reflect your voice. And so so I think it could take it from a 5 to a 7.5, maybe an 8. But I don't think it's going to be a 10.
非常好。其实我听到 Carol 要补充什么吗？其实我还听到另外一个问题，我想要再问 Elton。好，那个刚刚 Carol 讲的这个整个过程里面，我觉得他讲的蛮不错的。好，就是说他的孩子用 ChatGPT 这些方式来帮助他自己。But Elton, this is probably 我觉得时间差不多到。This is probably the last question. If nobody has more question, but this question I'm going to give to you maybe 2 minutes. But this is very important. Tell us what's the value of college counseling, like your private, this kind of things. Because I want to say, I believe that, because I think I did really, good choice that time. I'd rather pay somebody, this is my value, I'd rather pay somebody can talk to my son and make a right decision, help us. But, people probably not really willing, I would say willing or able to afford this kind of price to hire somebody like in private to do this. And how those parents can, help themselves or do something else. 那个林老师先等一下哈，我们先让 Elton maybe answer this question first, and then we have 林老师。
So just for clarification, there's maybe two. If I heard two questions, number one, what's the value of college counseling, and then what should parents do if they can't afford college counseling? Is that correct?
Very good, thank you. Okay. 1 question to 3.
I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question. I think this is where I think depending on the student, I think certainly some students just need a little bit of a push, maybe just need some reminders. For some students, they just need somebody to help them organize the process and make it more clear. And but I do think a lot of students, this process of taking that next step into college is the most stressful event of their lives, right? So I think, oftentimes, like having the most stressful sort of topic between parents and children, sometimes it's a difficult conversation, and it brings stress into the household. And there's a lot of dynamics that we can get into. This is where children are oftentimes like, they may not say so, but they want to please their parents. They want to make their parents proud. And they know that a lot of that is built into the college admissions process, even though I'm sure plenty parents here are saying, you can go anywhere, I don't have any expectation, but actually built within the child's sort of just the way that they're connected with you as a parent, they want to make you happy and they want to please you. And so that's built into this journey with the college admissions process. So certainly having somebody outside the family to walk students through that journey and to remind them that there's lots of options, to remind them that they have value, to remind them that their voice matters, to remind them that there's plenty of ways to be successful. Oftentimes it's communicating truths to them that they need to hear at a very pivotal stage of their lives. And of course, certainly we talk through how students can better position themselves to get into whatever university they're aiming for. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. And oftentimes it's really about helping students just gain, again, greater confidence and clarity about who they are and about what next step they should be taking, and then really go into the next stage with both confidence and joy, and feeling like they are taking a step that is right for them. So the counseling part is it's hard to quantify, and but it's so important as a part of this process. I think if the second question with regards to parents who may not be able to afford, that's totally fine. Actually, let me encourage you to just invite a mentor, somebody outside of your family. It could be a family friend that your child has seen as they've grown up. It could be it could be another family member. It could be somebody at church. It could be anybody, but an outside mentor that your son or daughter can connect with regards to, and that person's role is not to you need to do X, Y, Z. That person's role is to encourage, is to remind them to keep taking steps forward, and to have a safe place that your son or daughter can talk about the college journey with. And so I'd invite you, invite a mentor from outside the family into that process. It's stressful. It's a stressful process, and I totally understand.
非常好哈。Thank you, Elton. I think this part is like you really try to comfort those parents. We've been through all that. I know how stressful they feel right now. That's why you're here with us tonight. And this is morning anyway. So, Annie 老师，你是不是还有什么要补充的 ？Or more questions? Just like one more question. Annie 老师。
好，我问一个大家都很不能 figure out 的一个问题，就是为什么一个 perfect student portfolio, no any essay issue, no make a big mistake, 这么好的一个学生，为什么名校不要他？ 甚至被那么多学校这就是我们最近看到这个 case。
刚刚在讨论那个问题。
如果这个 case 是真的话，为什么？我相信这么多年来，我们也听过蛮多这种 case。然后我现在讲的前提是，这个学生没有任何 issue 哦，没有 mistake。那为什么这些名校，我们讲名校不要他
？The question is, how come a perfect profile can get rejected at all these top schools?
She's trying to back to, remember from the beginning we were talking about the case, high school students. We could probably can based on that case, and you kind of give some suggestion or how you saw so much students like this, and how you give some reason or explain. I don't know if you can, but I just
yeah, I can.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this
Thank
is so. I mean, the reason why a perfect profile is and let's just say, like, when you say perfect profile, I think the assumption is somebody with excellent grades, excellent test scores, a good resume, and basically you're saying that how come somebody who hasn't kind of done all the right things get accepted to a lot of schools, and the reality is that, like, it's purely a supply and demand issue. To be honest with you, I think, and this is where the schools aren't looking for just perfect grades and perfect test scores. They're looking for, and this is why the Supreme Court decision recently was such a big deal. And actually, I would say that that's a bigger concern right now for colleges than ChatGPT, is the college effort to want to diversify the student community. So they want students to be from different backgrounds. They want students from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So they want different ethnic groups, different states, different geographic locations, international students, domestic students. They want all sorts of students. And if you took exactly the same student from the same profile, we interviewed Pomona College admissions director, top 3, top 4 liberal arts college in the United States. She was saying that for every space that they have open, there's 7 students who are exactly the same. And so you can't take everybody. You can't take everybody who's exactly the same profile. So this is where I feel like this may be getting into another another seminar, but like oftentimes, like I think a common story that we hear all the time, and this is going away from ChatGPT, by the way, but like there's a lot of pressure, to go into certain types of industries, like whether it's computer science or pre-med or whatever it might be. And if you have 100 people going into the same direction, I mean, you don't need all 100 people. I mean, it's just, it begins to look the same, and I think some people might consider that as being sort of racial profiling or discriminatory, but the reality is that just human bias is that when you see the same profile over and over again, there's not a you don't need to take everybody. You don't need to take everybody that looks exactly the same. So this is why I keep coming back to wanting students to be true to themselves. I mean, I think if you like music, or if you like art, or if you like history, you should own that and really celebrate who it is that you are. And then we're going into a season of the industry where I think those skills are going to be more valuable. And so and if you own own who you are, you may naturally actually stand out better, instead of just shooting for high grades and shooting to look like everybody else, or shooting to kind of be exactly what everybody else is doing. That's going to make it more difficult. So I don't know, did I answer that question?
Yeah. I think I kind of understand. I just use one Chinese idiom. I think everybody, the Chinese teacher will understand that. 我觉得 Elton 在跟大家讲的一个心态就是 college pool 里面叫做僧多粥少，也就是说太多人进到 computer science 这个，然后学校也只能选出来最好的那个，或者他们喜欢的那个，不是一定是最好。我们觉得最好跟他们看的最好的 angle 会不太一样。然后每一个学校，就像我在猜那个刚害的学生， 其实可能在整个 California 这样子的 profile 很多。
Let me add, I can add one other perspective.
Right.
If the student is already a software engineer at Google, from the school's perspective, what more can they provide? Right?
From the
Like,
college's
that's one thing to
perspective?
think about it. Yeah, I mean, of course, like a college education is, maybe it's inherently valuable, from your perspective. But it's also like this student did get into UT Austin, University of Maryland, decided not to go. Right? This student decided not to go to college. So this student is making his own choice. This is a decision of the student as well, right?
It's because he doesn't want to go or his parents doesn't want to pay him to go because the college is not good enough for us.
Well, now comes the question, why did you apply to UT Austin? Why did you apply to University of Maryland?
It's just kind of like a safety school for us. We have a lot of things that we can argue.
UT Austin, not a bad school at all.
These are,
See, that's how I feel from the beginning. I think Elton changed me a lot for, even from the college list. I actually not really making advertising for him. I just kind of feel personally, I really appreciate, he been helping me to be a better parent. Sometimes we think we're just kind of doing the right thing as a parents, but sometimes I do believe, 去跟一个大学 counselor 合作的时候，你可以看到自己很多不同的面向。然后again, this is for public service, for the community service. We're not really trying to sell something. 可是I'm trying to say sometimes I do believe this is a profession job, and it's a professional job to share people how to apply to college. 我不知道为什么这个世界变这么困难，要去念大学需要整个这样子的 process。But I do feel that's a value there. 可是我觉得很多老师们大家加油，还有很多家长们大家加油。因为我觉得孩子自己本身就会很优秀，不因为他是要不要去念一个最好的大学来做最好的包装。我真的有时候是这样感觉，尤其我小孩子念完大学之后，我觉得刚刚回答你那一题那个学生你觉得他可以直接去 Google 工作，为什么还要去念大学？因为我觉得大学里面有很多东西是人生难得的经验，例如说你会碰到你可能第一个 first love in college. You might see somebody.
You can do that at work.
First love?
Yeah. My mom's arguing like why college is
like valuable,
Yeah.
Because I feel bad if my kids straight to work and miss this part of life, because I think it's very important. But anyway, 今天已经很晚了，谢谢大家跟我们一起聊天我现在人在台北，然后我这段时间都会在台北。我慢慢的也会找一些跟台湾或者是说有一些我觉得很有趣的话题继续跟大家见面。那如果你今天觉得这个 college 的这些 consulting 的东西有任何的一些问题，这个他可以帮你先回答一下。所以我觉得我们就是 try to do the service for the community。然后我真的知道像 Katie 像 Tammy 这些我们很爱的小孩子的这一年刚好现在这个时间是在最紧张的时候，我希望今天这些东西对大家有帮忙。其实我们就是 open mic 跟大家去做一个讨论。那thank you Elton so much for giving us your talk and your love for the community, because I understand your time is very valuable. So you want to wrap up?
I mean, it's like I'm at work doing my own webinar. But thank you all for coming. I'm sure 我知道我妈应该会有其他的节目跟其他的other webinars that she will want to host in the future. So you can stay tuned. She doesn't have a website or anything, so I can't promote anything. You can follow her on Facebook. She has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You can follow that as well.
Yeah, totally fine. I mean, thank you, Elton. Do you want to say a few words to comfort my poor parents this time? They are trying to struggle with money and the work and also the college essay.
Honestly, parents are doing a good job, and you're doing the best you can, and that's all you can do, to be honest with you. And your kids actually know that you're doing your best. They're not telling you that, but they see it. And so persevere, hang in there, and we'll make it.
Yeah, good. 所有的朋友们加油！你们的小孩现在不会感谢你的，但是到这么大的时候，他们心里就会知道，他们其实是感激你们的。所以一定要，我们要手牵着手，大家互相帮忙，然后呢，让我们这段时间过去。所以你一定要先挺住，不能让你自己先生气，先倒下来，先跟孩子对抗，这样就不是真的最好的一个过程哈。所以大家一定要在这个时候先撑过去，然后带着你的孩子往下走哈。好，完了。谢谢大家，谢谢。